So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Mr. Ross Curnow on. Now, myself and Ross did some work together. We were just saying offline, I think it was a couple of years back, come October. Ross went on quite the journey, both when we were working together, also personally, professionally, lots going on. And I know he has since us been working together. And I think Ross's story is powerful for anyone listening in terms of maybe not being in the best place, doing a lot of work on yourself, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and then setting yourself up so you can take ownership and thrive. But within a very hectic life, lots going on, and actually, it's more than we're all more than capable of taking some action and changing that. And so I think Ross is a great story. We did a chat like this a couple of years back, but I wanted to bring Ross back on now because he's always got interesting and exciting things to say. So before we kick off, Ross, do you want to just introduce yourself? Who you are, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Ross, as you've just said. I am currently building my family home. So I've had a true ADHD kind of existence for the last whole life. I played drums. I then set up a street food business called Mother Clucker, which sold fried chicken all around London. And that was, I don't know, for like eight odd years. And then we sold it to Byron Burger in COVID, of all things, which was an experience. And then I set up a small residential building firm and learnt that doing things with my hands was good for me. And then, learned a lot of stuff. And the main goal has always been something to do in property or building construction. And so that was a great experience, and then learned enough, I feel, to give building my own house a crack. And we'll report back in another 2 years on how that's gone.
Yeah. Well, hence the chipboard behind you. And then amongst that, misses, kids, like lots going on, right?
Lots going on. I think we were talking about it before we started, but moved about a year ago, so settling in with that. Kid going into nursery for the first time after we've moved. She's now going to school. Wifey runs a PR company in London, and she's extremely busy. So, many moving parts whilst trying to remain centered and fit and strong
and grounded.
To do all of those things.
Well, serial entrepreneur in a various different guises, misses as well in the same thing, right? And so, this is the whole tenuous balance I talk about a lot, which is wanting to push your business forward, grow that as a creative and financial endeavor, support your wife, support your daughter, build a house, nice and steady.
Sometimes I'm not doing much, like get a grip, and then someone says it back to me.
Definitely are.
Maybe doing a few things.
Maybe I'm doing a few bits and bobs. Well, let's kind of kick off the conversation. When we first engaged, Ross, I think you'd seen a few of my bits on actually Instagram. Some guys it's LinkedIn, others it's Instagram. Reached out for a chat. We decided to do a bit of work together. You joined the program and stuff. What was going on with you back then that made you reach out to someone like me, a coach like me, to go, right, I want to, make some changes or do some work?
I think there was a lot of stuff. I think I was in a sort of a crossroads of past self, of what I was doing career-wise, and just felt a bit lost. Maybe that I'd hit the glass ceiling or the roof of where I was at. Bit anxious. Like I'd been diagnosed with ADHD later on in life, which sort of like made a lot of stuff make sense, but I needed to sort of find a path through all of that stuff. What resonated with you was the sort of, not brutal, but you are, regardless of what you're going through, still in charge of yourself. And if you do nothing's going to change. And I liked how you sort of put it out there like that. However, offering some sort of support in reclaiming that I sort of, like I've watched a lot of the same stuff we used as like to steer things, and done a lot of those things. However, the sort of accountability and turning up was the bit that I'd often start things and then not be able to keep it up. So those, what was it, like 2 months of your course sort of like helped to force some of those habits in, and managed to keep some of them going. I also, like you said, there was some hard stuff. My best friend's wife got really ill. She was also a very, very good friend of ours. And that sort of really kicked off as I started with you. And then I managed to sort of see the program through whilst dealing with that and running a business and working and all the other things we talked about. So it sort of came at the right time. And seeing it through, I think having a hard time and dealing with it all at the same time and pushing through sort of like instilled the main point you were talking about, right? So yeah, all in all, it was good. A good time.
What you'd said there, not that I'd ever wish a serious illness and then sadly a death on anyone, right? That's not anything you'd ever wished for a young person. It's horrendous. But it's a very acute and intense and unpleasant live example of, well, life's going to happen and that's shit. Yeah. It's really, really shit. Let's not beat about the bush. Well, then, what can I do? Do I fold? Do I drink every day? Do I use that as a reason to not take care of myself and support the other people that I love that things are going on with? Or can I take that and go, well, I'm going to still be my best within that, and none of it's perfect. But that's exactly, I think, what you're saying there, Ross. It's life dealt as a shit hand, but equally, it's on me then to show up as best that I can and I want to, and be that physically, mentally, emotionally. And you very much did that during the process. You embraced it, and it's kind of using the process to be better in your life despite what's happening. We don't want that to happen in a million years, but it did. And I think for you especially, in a way, it almost helped you become more accountable and really challenge those old patterns of behaviour, because it goes, well, okay, well, I fold or I keep going. And actually, I don't want to fold, and I want to be better, and I want to keep going. And you did. And we finished the process with you in a very, very good spot. And it didn't, you didn't allow that to compromise yourself. And I think for you, that was a bit of a paradigm shift in typical behaviour, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Something I've been thinking about a lot in terms of you can't do it all. And part of the way I work is almost, I want to shine a light on that. And that's okay. We'd like to, but we can't. The quote I heard the other day, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And there's always a tenuous balance and a compromise. And for me, I guess the empowered place is to be able to recognize when you're in those states and go, well, today's a day and I've done the best I can today. And that might look differently for the next day, depending on what's happened. Now, if the house falls down, the plumbing's gone boom. Right, well, I'm going to have to compromise some of the things I would like to do for myself today because I need to address that. That doesn't make you a piece of shit. It just means that's happened. And so playing that kind of game with yourself relative to what's going on across the board, that's what allows, I think, for equanimity, happiness, contentment, and lets it breathe and sit there in the background, because we can't do all things all the time. We might want to and like to, but we can't. And if you accept that you can't, but then you look at, like you just said, what can you do? That is the more empowered place. And sometimes what you can do is much, much diminished. But if that's it, well, then you've done the best you can. But I think what we often do, I believe a lot of guys, yourself included, Ross, me included, like we want to drive, we want to be successful. We have this almost this idyllic mirage of ourselves who can complete everything all the time, has got everything nailed, it's all perfect. And then if we don't achieve that, anything less than that is you're a piece of shit, you can't do it, it's rubbish, useless. And then if that's your mindset, you often then self-sabotage yourself because you haven't achieved whatever this perfect thing is. Whereas for me, it's about lowering the bar and being fair to yourself and going, well, that's never going to happen. It's unachievable, right? So that's it. Some days we can get near that, and that's great. But days you can't, as long as you're doing what you can, you're not failing any less. that's what I would call high performance, I'm using inverted commas, on that day, because it's relative to what's happened.
Yeah.
And once you give yourself that grace, that for me, that's what allows for that consistency, progress, just generally feeling a bit better and more engaged within your life, right?
Totally agree. Yeah. I was thinking, I've started building Lego with my kid,
Nice.
and she's like 3.5. She's 4 in August, and it's very similar when like she's trying to push a thing down to click it in. That the one go, maybe two, and she's like, I can't do it. And I think the message that we're trying to teach at the moment is that trying is better than not actually doing it. This massive goal of sticking the fucking light down on the thing to build this donut truck is obviously the goal here, but it's better to keep trying and have a few goes and ask for some help rather than it is to just get frustrated and self-sabotage, as you exactly just said. And it is very easy for me to self-sabotage and let the imposter syndrome voice coming in, and you aren't this and you aren't doing enough. But I think like being that little bit more self-aware enables you to cut yourself some slack and crack on, or without like hashtag wellness way of saying it, like recenter yourself and just be like, right, what can we do for the rest of the day, and have some positivity about that.
Yeah, because that kind of centering yourself, being grounded, or I guess being intentional or aware of what's going on, all slightly wanky phrases, but it's all really important, because if you allow your inner chimp monkey, your shadow part of yourself to run riot, whatever's happened generally isn't that bad, usually. It's your reaction to it and then how you behave off the back of it. The beautiful analogy for this self-sabotage from a client, Tony, he's been on the podcast. It's not mine, I wish it was, which is you're driving down the road, you get a puncture, you're like, oh, shit. So you jump out and stab the other 3 tyres. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, let's get out the puncture, put the knife down, get out the puncture repair kit, let's fix that and keep moving. And metaphorically, I think we want to be putting the knife down and getting the puncture repair kit out for ourselves. But invariably, what you might notice, if we stretch the metaphor, you jump out and check the tyre. It's not even a puncture. You just went over a bump. Oh, okay. What was I stressing about? Keep going. And I think it's being able to play that for yourself, because the example you made for your daughter there is beautiful, because it's like in her little world, that's really frustrating. No, we can make this work. Keep going. Come on. And it's about having that inner voice, because you wouldn't scream and shout at a 3.5-year-old for not being able to put a Lego brick on top. You'd be really calm, wouldn't you?
It depends what else. Depends how many punches I got.
But ideally, we wouldn't, right? And so it's having that internal voice with yourself. And then you go, if you are able to stop and go, hold up a second, what have we done today? And what have I been doing this week? And where am I? Well, actually, I'm doing all right, But even if you're not, I'm just having a bit more inner compassion to do that. But then once you do that, that allows for the progress, and you don't trip yourself up and say, fuck everything. There's a really great quote from Ryan Holiday, which I love, which is, I think it's Ryan Holiday anyway, which is self-belief's overrated, give yourself evidence. But in those moments, it's about, rather than go, we can do it, it's, okay, well, we can say that to ourselves, which is sort of important. But you go, hold up a second, well, let's have a look what's happened today and what have you done, and let's have a look at the house. I've built that. Chill out. See what I mean? So you are giving yourself evidence. And so that's, I think, where the imposter syndrome, that uncomfortableness can come in, is where you're not aligned. You do shout at your 3-year-old because you can't do that, and you go, I didn't do that. That's not what I wanted to do. And so if there's a lot of those misalignments, I don't think you feel great. And it's like, well, you're not showing up as the person you want to be. If we join those dots, I think there isn't that misalignment there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think you often, or one often, of the guys who have done this often, just keep going. It's those it's seconds that make a difference for you to stop. Or like the one that really, really resonated with me was like, taking time to be present with your kid, or like you, I think, there's a couple of people who have said that to me, but taking the small moments to be very present with X thing make a difference to your day. You know, I still struggle with all of these things, but I'm much more aware of them. So if you do take 2 minutes to just write down, or in my case, I'm on my own here, so I can't really write, so I asked ChatGPT
Nice.
what I've done today, and it likes to tell me what I've done. That's a recent thing that I've been doing, but you know, it really makes it a lot easier to, whether you journal or whatever it is that you do, to remind yourself that you haven't just sat on a chair all day and in self-loathing and done nothing, you know.
And what you said in terms of you don't get it right all the time, not perfect, and I think it's very important to say I'm not perfect. I get stuff wrong constantly, as I'm sure you do. Not meant
right.
The key is, if you are being a bit more intentional and checking yourself and looking at your behaviour, you're never always going to shower yourself in glory. But if you're being self-corrective or error-corrective and looking at, oh, hold up a second, it wasn't great there. Right, what do I need to do? How can I be better next time? What was going on? What were the triggers and the inputs? And then you can analyse it and move forward, and it doesn't metastasize into anything worse.
Yeah. Whereas if you blindly just keep going, you are going to keep making the same mistakes. Guaranteed. There's no other output. There's no
a very live example of that was with my daughter, Cleo. She's our youngest of 3. She's 4. And on the weekend, it was Sunday, so Father's Day, so I had a lovely day. Me and Kate were out relatively late for a nice meal out for my father-in-law's 75th. Very first world problems, this, right? Very much so. Got in late at about midnight, which for me is so beyond my bedtime these days. Wasn't drinking either.
Telling
me off. It was like, what are you playing at, sunshine? And so, woke up after tired, still got up and did my stuff like I usually do, but very, very tired. Anyway, I had a lovely day, Father's Day, really nice. And then at the end of the day, for the start of the week, I've got vitamins and pills and stuff, and I've got a pill box I do. And Claire quite likes helping me with it. She goes, pills with Daddy, and she sits on my knee and she likes putting the things in, right? So Kate was upstairs getting bath time ready for the younger girls. It was like, Claire, come upstairs. Oh, you have to go upstairs, Mummy. She's like, no, I want to help you finish. Like, okay. So she did, right? And she's doing this. Now, bear in mind, I'm a 40-year-old, coherent, mostly adult, right? And she's 4. And she's on my knee. And then, so a couple of things fell on the floor. And then one of them wasn't meant to go in the bit at the end. And I was like, oh, don't put that one in there, Cleo. She said, oh, okay. And she started to do it. And I was like, no, Cleo, don't put that in there. I said don't put it in there. This is a pill in the box, by the way, right? And I'm 40. And she's doing it. And then she's gonna put it in there. And she did. I was like, Cleo, it's a bit louder and snappy than I'd like to be. And she ran up upstairs, and I just heard her say, Mummy, Daddy just shouted at me. And I was like, you piece of shit! You're 40, and she's helping you.
And I did exactly the same.
So for me, there could just because I'm big and she's small, just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen, and I was right. I was totally in the wrong. She was a little person just helping me. So part of there, well, how can we reconcile that? Recognise, you're a bit of a cunt there. You shouldn't have shouted at your child. So also, there's an opportunity to show Cleo how we reconcile when we get things wrong. And so, I was like, Cleo, can I just say, I'm really sorry for shouting at you. I shouldn't have done that. It was inappropriate. You were just helping Daddy, and you're being silly. It's not your fault, and I shouldn't have shouted at you. And I was out of order. So, and she went, thank you, Daddy. I love you. Just give me a cuddle. That was it. And so I wasn't perfect. None of us perfect.
I literally did exactly the same last night, and I said sorry. I shouldn't have done that when I was putting her to sleep. And she just gave me. And that's like that feedback loop connecting enables you to next time do the same thing.
And the excuse was I was a bit more tired, a bit more short, a bit more snappy. If I had not had 4 hours kip and had a busy day, which was a lovely day, by the way, would I probably wouldn't have. That's not her problem. That's me. And I wasn't going to say sorry and give all these reasons as to why. I'm sorry because I was and I shouldn't have done it. Done. That's it. And so I think there are 2 great examples where we're not perfect. We do get things wrong. For me, being your better self is recognizing that and acting on it in the right way. We would all love to be walking through life peaking all the time and every interaction with your kids is perfect. That's not how life works. But it's like, if it isn't a great interaction and you are at fault, putting your hand up and saying, but that shows them Daddy isn't perfect, but this is how we make it better in the right way. Does that make sense? And so,
totally. I also think that everybody talks about this, but social media, if you're staring down Instagram the whole time, the curated version of people on the internet, if you haven't taken the time to do this work and you just see these people with abs doing the dad, running a business, this, that, and the reality is not broken down by them as to the fact that nobody is perfect. And you just get fed. It is very hard to realise that, all this other shit we're talking about is going on for everybody. And also, like you said, it's a very privileged point to make, that story. However, everybody's experiences and barometer of what is going on is what is going on for that person. So something hard for someone might be a different thing is harder for the other, but it's all the same experience for you, and your experience is only yours. And so I think the major shift here is that being able to see those things and try and make a difference for tomorrow, really, because you can only, all you can do is start again, I guess, like Sam Harris vibes.
It's true.
Otherwise, you just go backwards.
And that interaction, just to use an example, like in the grand scheme of life, one thing that it's not that no big deal, but your life really is those interactions. It's how you greet your missus when she walks through the door, or you walk through the door. It's how you interact with your children. It's the little things you do every day.
Yeah.
And like we said, we're never going to get those right all the time because we're not perfect. But if we can try and get more of them right more of the time, and then when we fuck up, correct it, I think generally life looks and feels better. And that's where, looping back to what we discussed earlier about hard, difficult things, that's not a hard, difficult thing that happened there, right? I was just a bit tired and snapped at my kids. But hard, difficult things do happen in life. But then if you're in a state where you can look, recognise and check your behaviour, even in amongst the hard times, you can then cope and feel better within that. And I think that's, for me, what it's all about. Like, what the Buddhists say, life is suffering. It is hard stuff a lot of the time. But if we accept that as a default and then recognise that we're an ongoing project that can be worked on, then ideally you show up as best you want within it. The analogy I like to conceptualise it is like it's like about being a lighthouse in a storm. When it's clear, you don't need the lights on. It's fine, lovely. But then when the storm's in and it's bucketing and buffeting it, it's still strong. The light's there. It's still looking out. And I think I like to think about myself and the guys I work with just generally is that's what's happening. And when it's calm, it's great. But when it isn't, we can still hold the line.
Totally. I also just sort of more on that point I was making is I think with people who haven't done this journey of trying to be a bit better or taking the second to self-reflect, it's very easy to stand there and go, well, like, it'd be nice if I could do that too, but I'm busy or whatever. That is the major paradigm shift that everybody needs to overcome. Man, woman, they, them, whatever, toddlers, you know what I mean? My fucking dog. But I think that's out of any of this, peeling it back and not saying woo, it's woo woo, or being put off by wellness or self work or any of those words that have quite a definitely in a male space, a kind of like wimpy negative thing. That thing is, I find is the hardest thing to do. So if anybody feels like any of these things, just trying it and not giving up after you put the first Lego block down is the only thing that, I guess that's the only advice, is that just seeing that bit through for a couple of weeks. And why that 2 weeks, 2 months with you, and also the sort of like waterfall cascading effect of adding people in and the older people or the people who've been there longer in the course with you really helps to sort of show that, because you get overwhelmed at the beginning, or some people do, and then towards the end you're being reaffirmed that it's worth seeing it through. And that was a helpful bit.
What you're saying there in terms of not you, but a lot of us can be, or it must be easy for you, it must be nice for you that you can do that. But ultimately what that does is just keep you stuck, because you go, okay, I can't. Can you not?
Yeah.
Who says? And if we peel back the lid and go honest, like if you're just honest, you go, okay, well, it's easy for you because X, Y, Z. Okay, maybe it is. How's that going to help you? It's not, is it? So what can we do for you?
Yeah.
What can you do? Well, I can't go and
Yeah.
do jiu-jitsu in the gym. No, that's what I do. But what can you do? Could you do one push-up when you get out of your bed? Of course I can. Well, then you can do some exercise, can't you?
Yeah.
Now, that's a trite, really, really extreme example. But it's about breaking down those barriers, and that's one random example on exercise, whatever it is. But for me, I think if we start to frame ourselves and put ourselves in the driving seat, well, then there's always something you can do, and that's ultimately more empowering. And so no matter what's going on, there are things we can do to take care of ourselves. They might be much diminished, like we've been talking about, but there always is something. And that's for me, that's the more empowered place. And if we can go through life in that state, well, that's when you can start to feel resilient to those difficult times and challenges. It's because, okay, I've got this. This is going to be tough. I don't quite know what I'm doing, but there's things I can do, and there's always something I can do, and there's always something that I can control, even if it's really small. Well, then it flips the script, right? I think that's the...
Absolutely. I had a therapy session a few weeks ago, and I said that I felt like I was understanding a thing that we were discussing on the level where I wanted to understand it, and I said to him that the shift is small, but the work is big, and I wrote that down on my board up there, and I think that sort of sums that up. Like all these little things that you shift on a daily basis sculpt this bigger, better day.
It's the compounding effect,
and therefore we can
compound effect.
Totally. So 1 push-up next week, 2, and that, the self-awareness and reflecting, like you're saying, whether you're doing that on a day or whether you shouted at your kid or whatever, those compounded over time enable you to do more, which is what everybody who is listening to this on average is sort of striving for.
So it's like, I'm too busy to put my phone down. I have to be on it constantly. Put it down for 2 minutes, like during bath time.
Yeah,
but I could do 2 minutes. Well, you can do something, can't you? And all these examples. But I think us, the royal, us, you. Ego doesn't like that, and they want the big shiny thing, but it's not. It's the little things, and it's those little things that add up en masse that result in us looking and feeling as we do. And if we can align those things to more to what we want to be doing, the choices, then I think life starts to look and feel better, right? And you're a great example of that, Ross. And
100%.
As you sit building your house.
Well, maybe I should do a sit.
On that note, I don't want to cannibalise too much of your time, and it's been a pleasure chatting again. And it's great to see you in a really good spot, notwithstanding life's having its challenges and you're working through stuff, but that's the point. Any parting thoughts or comments before we get off for anyone that's listening to this?
Well, maybe what I just said, which is the shift is small, but that work is big. So give it a crack. Really, that's show up for yourself, I guess, to get more.
I think the showing up for yourself is the important one, right? And recognizing if anyone is listening and you're not feeling your best, or even if it's like, well, it's all great on paper, but actually I'm just not as content as happy, which is a lot of the story that I hear from a lot of guys I work with. Mm-hmm. The reality is there is always something you can do. And sometimes you might think it needs to be big, shiny stuff, and it really doesn't. Small, little things have a very, very big impact. And the first step, I think, really is just putting your hand up and going, actually, I don't feel my best. It's not quite working. And if you can admit that to yourself, then you can get your hands dirty and do something about it. And the doing something about it doesn't have to be rocket science. Whether it's to work with a coach like me or not doesn't really matter. It's like, look at where's the low-hanging fruit here, what's not working, and what can I change? What one thing can I work on consistently for a week and then build from there? And if you apply that mindset, that's a lot of stuff you can do in a year, right? And it doesn't have to be big stuff. And just allow it to compound.
Totally. I think it's easy to just be scared as well and confuse that with not having enough time. And it is scary to self-reflect because you're opening yourself up to critically analysing what you've done. So don't be scared to do that, because one push-up's only one pause away.
What you said there, on the other side of that, having an honest look at yourself is where the magic is. Because if things aren't working, it's not going to change. But if you face up to it and put a mirror up and have a look, on the other side of that is you feeling, looking, operating better because you've addressed what's not working. And that can be scary. But once you do that, it's like ripping off a plaster.
Totally.
Like, what next? And then there's levels, right? So it's it's an exciting journey, which you're very much on, and I know you'll continue to be on, Ross, which is great. Mate, thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If anyone is listening or watching and they want to talk to me about how I could help, drop me a note in the comments or on the DMs. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers.